What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about the case of Susan Smith. This is the story of a mother who was searching for love, and the only thing that was standing in her way were her own children. This case takes place in 1994 in Union County, South Carolina. This is Susan Smith, and she was a 23-year-old mother to her two sons, Michael and Alexander. On October 25th, 1994, she reported her children missing to the police. Now, this turned out to be a really big deal because in her community, bad things like this just didn't happen. She reported to the police that her car got stolen by a man while her children were still inside. This report spread like wildfire, and it wasn't long before multiple news stations picked up Susan's story. Hundreds and even thousands of people ended up watching, hoping that this mother would have her children returned to her safely. There were countless members in her community that came together and volunteered to help bring these boys back home. News channels even began interviewing multiple people. One of those people ended up being Susan herself. In the interview, she can be seen begging for her children to come home, begging for whoever has her children to not harm them and just return them safely. She went on like this for a few days, putting on an act as the concerned mother that wanted nothing but the best for her children. For over a week, search parties, police, and even general members of her community were searching far and wide for her sons. Nothing could have prepared them for the truth that they were going to find out soon. During these searches, the police began to investigate a little bit further into Susan because the story that she was telling just didn't make a lot of sense. One of the reasons the police began to look so deeply into Susan was the fact that her car was missing. Her car seemed to just have vanished without a trace, even though it contained not only a grown man, but two children in it. There were no reports of the car being seen. Cameras did not catch the car anywhere. It just vanished into thin air, or so they thought. Police kept questioning Susan, and eventually they stumbled upon a disturbing detail. Susan's reasoning for driving at the time was that she was going to visit a friend, but when the police questioned that friend, one, they weren't even home at the time, and two, they had no intentions of meeting Susan at all that day. Slowly, the police began to notice more inconsistencies in Susan's story, and over time, they made the realization that Susan knew a whole lot more than what she led the police to believe at first. Somehow, they even convinced Susan to take a lie detector test. During her lie detector test is when Susan broke. With all the evidence stacked up against her, she finally told the police the truth of what happened. The reasoning behind it all was absolutely unbelievable. Susan had been dating a successful businessman at the time and found herself falling in love with him. As time passed and their relationship grew, Susan expressed her love that just wasn't reciprocated, and the main reason was that he did not want to be the father to her two children. Her boyfriend had made it especially clear that he had no intentions of continuing their relationship because he just really didn't want to be a stepfather. A few weeks later, Susan's boyfriend called her and officially broke things off between the two. Susan was absolutely heartbroken, and in her mind, there was only one thing left to do that could save her relationship. On October 25th, 1994, Susan put both of her sons in their car seats in the back of her car and told them that they were going to go on a drive to their favorite park. Her sons, Alexander and Michael, who were only 1 and 3 years old at the time, were just looking forward to a fun day at the park with their mother. When they arrived at the park, Susan drove up to the edge of the lake and stopped her car. Susan put her car in neutral, made sure the boys were still buckled, got out, locked the door, and left. Slowly, the car started rolling into the lake, and the boys were completely trapped with no way to get out. The car fell into the water and slowly started sinking to the bottom. Susan watched to make sure the car submerged completely, and after just left like nothing had ever happened. After learning the truth of the situation, both the police and Susan's community were absolutely horrified at what she had done. Sure enough, the police visited the spot that Susan had told them, and that's where they found the car with the boys completely submerged in water, still buckled into their car seats. The entire car was filled with water, and neither of the boys survived. After, Susan was arrested for the murders of both of her sons. In 1995, Susan went to trial. During her trial, the prosecution was heavily pursuing the death penalty due to the severity of Susan's crime. The defense, on the other hand, was arguing that Susan had a plethora of mental struggles that were the cause of her dumping her sons into the lake. After only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict. Luckily for Susan, the jury voted against the death penalty and she was instead sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Since her imprisonment, Susan has been diagnosed with dependent personality disorder and major depression. To this day, she continues to express her remorse and regret for what she did. As of November 2024, Susan is actually eligible for parole and is expected to apply in the coming months. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you found the video interesting.